switch it to another location. I mean, E3 doesn't have to be in California. Why should it be in
That
California? Just switch it to go to another
that's
location.
where I wanted to go to next. Actually, crazy. So
All right,
perfect timing.
all right.
So I personally think that in order for E3 to remain or kind of like come back, it needs to evolve. Now I'm gonna give my quick take on it, and then I'll go. I want to hear if you guys have any idea of how would you guys do E3. So I think a way that E3 could evolve is kind of like how they do like the New Year kind of event, where you see they have like that transmission live, and they have key locations around the world, and they kind of all are waiting for the New Year to celebrate. They can kind of have different locations where gamers can meet up. Maybe they have their own theater where they kind of time, even if it's a digital event, but you know you have a digital event, but people can get together and kind of celebrate gaming, because that's one thing that I do think it's gonna remain from E3. Which shout out to our SJ fan on the chat, which she said Xbox is gonna continue their showcase at E3 time period. I think that time period it's gonna remain there. That's one thing that has been cemented, because when you think of June, you think of the E3 time. So even if E3 goes away, that time period, people are gonna capitalize around that time. So if they do some sort of celebration event where like you can have one in California, but you do it smaller at another venue that's cheaper. You can do one in New York, which there's a lot of people there. Maybe you do one at Miami. You can do one in Europe, one in Japan, and you can kind of like do it kind of like that, like a New Year's event. Now I'm gonna go with you, Silent, first before since Crazy already did his little rant. Um, do you have any idea? Hopefully better than mine's, of how A3 should evolve or come back.
So I am in agreement, right, in the fact that like June we factor that as E3 time, right? It's just like I think August we expect Gamescom is coming in Leipzig, or TGS in September. It's June is very well known for being E3 time. So I think just like what RSJ was saying is like keeping it around that same time makes a bunch of sense, because obviously like everyone's already in that mindset, right?
Yes.
That as soon as January hits, because Microsoft said it in the past. It's when I've listened to some of Major Nelson's podcasts in the past, he's mentioned the fact that like planning for E3 starts November, December-ish, but starts to ramp up in January, and they start into crunch time and they start preparing to go into E3. Everyone has kind of built their schedule around the fact that E3 there's going to be a big showcase. August in Gamescom, you're going to have a small showcase. You're going to have a PAX in there somewhere. You're going to have TGS. But E3 has always been kind of like it's been like the True Point North. It's been kind of one that's been there for so long that everyone kind of plans around it, right?
Yeah.
Like all these companies plan, they make gameplay footage and stuff so we can see it. They do little, vertical slices so we can see their games and stuff. It's so built into the industry at this point that I think even if, the current guys working, Reed Pop that's working the stuff on E3 currently, whether they're there or not, I think this is going to continue anyways, right? They've already acknowledged it, just like we've also talked about. But the fact is like EA, you look at Embracer, you look at Microsoft, you look at all these companies, they've separated themselves away from it in regards to their actual showcases anyways. So whether E3 is there traditionally the way that we know it or not, E3 is going to live on, is kind of my thought, right? Like, we might not get to go walk the show floors and stuff when we finally all get together one of these days and we actually get to do like an E3 thing, but we're still going to have those showcases. The difference is maybe we'll have to go over to the Microsoft theater over here to do this one, or on Saturday we're going to have to go over here or whatever. But the good thing about it is that everyone's kind of cemented themselves in that area anyways. So even if you go to EA's showcase or you go to Microsoft's, it's really close. It's within a couple blocks of each other. So it's not like it's, super far out for you to travel, especially if the events are separated out in days. I look back to the early days of E3, right? Where like all the showcases were at the E3, like they were in the different halls, right? So I remember seeing the footage back on GameSpot, seeing it on Giant Bomb, seeing it on all those IGN, where it's like everyone's running in 20 different directions trying to get to all the different showcases. I think this is kind of better because potentially, like with E3 being out of the way as it is right now, I think we're going to see more of those third-party developers tying in with Sony or with Microsoft or Embracer, whoever. We're going to see more of that stuff in their showcases, and I think maybe it'll just bulk up the current showcases in the absence of a traditional E3 where they could show those other things. I do think another thing, maybe a knock-on effect that we'll see, is the fact that now that E3 won't actually be there, because realistically, I'm like you, I think this is the last one. Like this is the last nail in the coffin, it kind of feels like.
Yeah.
Because from what I've read on this situation, it kind of sounded like the guy basically walked out and was like, we're done. That doesn't scream to me that they're coming back next year. Realistically, in a business sense, like the way they dropped it, I don't feel like they're coming back for another one. Or at least not in the same ownership that it is currently. But potentially, it's got a good knock-on effect for us, right? Because it is expensive to go to these different events. Potentially, with Los Angeles not having that specific draw, but there's still some of those showcases and stuff, maybe rooms and hotels and stuff like that will drop to a more acceptable price for us common folk. People who aren't getting sent out by Microsoft, IGN, folks like that. Like, we have to pay that out of our pockets. Most of those guys get comped. So fingers crossed, maybe if this is how it goes moving forward, we'll actually see better pricing because they don't have the main draw that is the E3 showcase, right? Draws thousands and thousands of people. Mm-hmm. On the selfish side, I don't think we need it to be Los Angeles. California's great. I love visiting California, but you know what? I know a place that actually just lost a few showcases recently. They lost outdoor retailers. They lost a few others. Utah would be a great place for us to have an E3 showcase.
Here in New York, at upstate, that would be a great
That
place.
would be cool too. That would give me an excuse to go visit New York.
Yeah, I mean, like that's something they got to do. I mean, they got to be like WWE. They got to move around. They have to. They can't be just stuck in one spot.
That can be a great idea too. Also, like
the last thing I'll say real quick, and then I'll throw it back to you is look at Gamescom out there in Germany, right? The pricing and stuff like that, when they do the showcase out there, they have hundreds of thousands of people that hit that show floor during the few days that thing's open. You got to imagine the cost is infinitely better than whatever we're dealing with out here, right? More reasonable. Because the amount of people that flock to that showcase, when there's not even that much really shown compared to an E3, like they're comparable some years. Sometimes Gamescom doesn't match up the same, but the pricing must be way better. Or I guess just maybe the fan base is, because like whenever their showcases happen, it's like hundreds of thousands of folks versus E3. It hasn't been that for quite a while, if ever, honestly.
Yeah, but like I was saying though, they gotta move around, like WWE. For example, 1 year California, 1 year Utah, not Utah. Um, 1 year Miami.
What was that? What was that? Hold on. Let's go back to that.
Let's rewind.
What was that? Let's rewind. Want to go back over that real quick. How do we say that name?
What, Utah?
Oh man.
Thank
my
you.
God.
Thank you.
Okay, just in case. I got it right this time, right?
Sort of. Yeah.
I'm not gonna say. I want it to be a guess. So every time you do it, you put that question mark at the end.
Okay. But anyways, it's got to be in Utah. It's got to be Miami too. Miami's a great place, for them to do it. And we have talked about this before, Sourblow. I mean, they gotta go elsewhere. I mean, they gotta get people. I wish they had like a big Latin showcase. Like for example, instead of Xbox going to Mexico, they should come to Dominican Republic and gather all the Caribbean islands over there. That would be a big event. Something that E3 could also do. It's something that they gotta.
I don't think they'll do Dominican Republic. At least not for a long time.
Don't say that. We probably will.
Mexico probably.
Probably will in the near future. Come on, let's cross
maybe
fingers.
even Brazil.
Yeah. Maybe Brazil. Yeah, Brazil's also a great place. But like I said, they gotta move around. They just cannot be still there because when those events come, of course, everything is gonna be expensive. Everything is gonna be, because it's the time of the week. Everybody's got to go there. Hotels are going to be a lot more expensive, stuff like that. So yeah, give people options. Give people that option. Like, oh, I live close to here. Let me go over there. Like for example, if they go to Miami, oh man, you got to believe I'm gonna be there in Miami. It's only a 2-hour flight. I'm there, baby. Go to Miami, and just go into that thing. And oh man, what was that? Someone fell, hit hard though.
My kid. I told you guys.
Let's go to Miami and do everything you want to do.
Oh, not Miami or like I said, go to Utah.
Oh man,
Utah. Sorry about
Utah.
that. New York, all those places. But yeah, move around. Just give people options instead of just being stuck in one place.
There's a wrestler in AEW called Wheeler Yuta.
Really?
Yeah.
I say we have E3 in New Jersey, so we can have a full-on show, and Dark won't get any Code Veronica footage. They will never show a godforsaken game.
That would be the perfect place for them to show kind of like a tease, Code Veronica, and then they'd be like, "Psych, it's never coming."
Like, enjoy your tank controls for the rest of time.
You guys are so mean. Poor Dark.